like to welcome everyone here to the Casino-Free Milford Citizens Participation Forum. Thank you all for coming. I'm John Seaver, and I'm the co-chair of Casino-Free Milford, and I also will be the co-moderator this evening with Steve Treadle, who is also the other co-chair of Casino-Free Milford. So, go easy on us. You know, we're not Mike Milford. We haven't been moderators before, but you know, we'll do our best. I'd like to ask everyone that has a cell phone or electronic device to please turn them off at this point. I'd also like to tell you that one of our speakers this evening, Selectman Chairman Bill Buckley, will not be joining us because his father-in-law passed away early this morning. So at this point, I'd like to have a moment of silence. We know that Bill really wanted to come here, and there's no question that Bill is here in spirit. I'd like to just take a brief moment to go over the agenda tonight, and then we'll get going. I know there's a baseball game going on in Boston that a lot of you are focused on, so we'll try to move it along pretty quickly. We have 4 speakers that are going to talk briefly about their perspective on the casinos, on the casino, and then they will return back here to the panel. After that, we will open it up to the citizen participation where you can ask questions or make a statement. Now, we are limiting the questions to Milford residents only, okay, because we're the only ones that can vote. So that's one requirement. And we're also limiting each question or statement to 2 minutes so that everyone can get a chance to speak and be heard, so we can get back and watch the Red Sox as well. So having said that, I want everyone to understand, let's be polite to people that don't have the same opinion as you. Let's be courteous. We're going to hear both sides, and then obviously the election is on November 19th. So having said that, I'd like to turn it over to my co-moderator, Steve Treadle, who will introduce our speakers. Thank you, Dan.
Our first speaker is Tom Larkin. Tom is a licensed psychologist. He's worked in that capacity in the Boston school system. And he currently works with inmates at the Billerica House of Corrections and with smart addiction recovery groups in the community. Tom is going to speak to us from his hands-on experience about the social cost of gambling.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Steve. Thank you all for coming out. The gambling industry has spent millions of dollars, over $10 million to get this law passed, and several millions of dollars since it's been passed to focus on the benefits. There's really never been an independent cost-benefit analysis. What I'm going to focus on tonight are the costs. What are the costs? We understand there will be jobs and there will be economic development. The gambling industry exaggerates that and very rarely talks about the costs. And the costs are extensive. Beginning with economic costs. Where is this money going to come from? This is not new money that's going to fall down into Milford. According to prize winning economist Paul Samuelson, gambling is a sterile transfer of money, creating no new money, absorbing time and resources, and subtracting from individual and government resources. The expansion of gambling revenue comes at the expense of other economic sectors. Some studies report a net job loss over time due to the shift of consumer dollars. In 2013, casino employees are being laid off all over the country. Let's take a look at Detroit, Atlantic City. Crime. Former Maryland Attorney General Joseph Curran stated, "There is no question in sites where gambling is being introduced, there is an increase in crime." FBI data demonstrates gambling attracts criminals. About 7% of non-gamblers have been incarcerated compared to 21.4% of active gamblers. And the cost has to do with policing, adjudication, incarceration, rehabilitation, recidivism, child abuse and domestic violence. In Deadwood, South Dakota, after 2 years of casino gambling, child abuse cases increased by 42%, domestic violence by 80%. In one study, 50% of spouses of pathological gamblers have been abused. In Indiana, 72 children were found abandoned on casino premises during a 14-month period. Some studies conclude that gambling is as much a risk factor for domestic violence as alcohol. Suicide attempts are higher among gamblers than any other addiction. Las Vegas has the highest suicide level in the country. In Atlantic City, abnormally high suicide levels appeared only after casinos were open. Bankruptcy. Of the 13 casinos in New Jersey, 8 have been involved in formal bankruptcy. Gambling is the fastest growing and fourth leading cause of bankruptcy. Never paid debts of gamblers are social costs for the rest of us. Youth gambling. Gambling is the fastest growing teen addiction, with their rate of pathological gambling twice that of adults. Many psychologists predict more problems with youth gambling in the next decade than with drug use. This is the first generation to grow up with computer video games in a government-sanctioned casino culture. Addiction. According to the National Gambling Impact Study Commission, about 30% of active gamblers have some level of gambling problem. And that population doubles within a 50-mile radius of new gambling sites. Addictions interact. Most people with gambling problems also have alcohol problems. Mental health and criminal behaviors are rarely isolated and often connected to gambling and drinking. About 30% of the incarcerated have gambling problems. Recidivism increases with the availability of gambling. Most gamblers, here's the final point I want to make, because I know we want to watch that World Series game. But the fact is that most people who gamble don't have a problem. But here's the key point. They don't lose very much. It turns out that about 80% of the money lost gambling comes from about 20% of the gamblers. And who are they? They are the less educated, the low income, minorities, the elderly, the formerly incarcerated, and returning veterans. Turns out 1 out of 5 returning veterans has some level of gambling problem. It's not isolated. They have substance abuse, post-traumatic stress, but the gambling is a piece of it. So the social costs of gambling easily exceed the cost of illegal drug problems. You know how much emphasis the state puts on illegal drug problems. So gambling correlates highly with tobacco use, depression, stress, heart attack, stroke, intestinal disorders, asthma, and automobile accidents. Now I've also got a bibliography supporting the points I made. Vinny Fratelli, my friend from Tewksbury, has a handout. I hope you'll all pick it up. Look at the bibliography, do some homework, and study this. Finally, our union leaders, legislators, town managers, board of selectmen, city councils, they're all honorable men, as Mark Anthony said. Sincere, conscientious. And let me quote from Martin Luther King. There is nothing more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Robert Steele, is our keynote speaker for the evening. Robert is Vice Chairman of an international consulting company, Director of numerous other companies, including the American Stock Exchange. Bob is a graduate of Columbia University and has served us in the CIA and in Congress. He's here with us this evening to speak about Connecticut's experience with casinos and big-time gambling seduction of small New England towns. Bob?
very much, Steve, and thank all of you for inviting me back to Milford. I feel I know many of you because I met many of you a month or so ago. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about Connecticut's experience with casinos and about my book, The Curse, Big Time Gambling Seduction of a Small New England Town. And it certainly couldn't be more relevant than Milford. The book, as many of you know, is a novel set against the explosion of casino gambling in Connecticut during the 1990s. The story begins with the Pequot War back in the 1600s, when the Connecticut colonists got together with their Mohegan allies and almost destroyed the Pequots, who were the largest and most fearsome tribe in Connecticut. The story then jumps on 350 years as these two tribes, the Mohegans and the Mashantucket Pequots, reemerge to build these two enormous casinos. And in the book, a Connecticut family becomes embroiled in a battle to stop a third casino that threatens the family's town and ancestral home. And in the end, the book is really a Faustian tale about a small, quintessential New England town faced with the choice of preserving its character and its values or accepting a proposal that will change the town forever. I know that the casino proposed for you here in Milford is not an Indian casino per se, but it is proposed by a casino tribe. And it is worth speaking just for a moment about the role of Indian casinos in spreading gambling across the country, a spread that is now reaching into Massachusetts. Indian casinos got their start back in 1988 when Congress passed something called the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, which was designed to help poor, federally recognized Indian tribes build casinos on their reservations in order to raise money to support their tribal governments. It would be fair to say, however, that Congress had absolutely no idea of the Pandora's box it was opening when it passed this law. As it turned out, the law not only opened the door to Indian casinos, but led to the building of hundreds of commercial non-Indian casinos across the country as well. And today, although in 1988 there were only 2 states that allowed casinos, today there are 39 states. And we have almost 1,000 casinos. The country is literally awash in casinos, almost evenly divided between Indian and non-Indian casinos. Nowhere, though, in the last 25 years did the gambling explosion reach more spectacular heights than in Connecticut. Foxwoods opened back in 1992 in legend, and Mohegan Sun opened just 4 years later in the town of Montville. They were the first casinos in the entire Northeast other than in Atlantic City. And with no other competition, they quickly grew to become the 2 biggest casinos on the planet, drawing over half the combined customers from out of state, mainly New York and Massachusetts, creating 20,000 casino jobs and sending hundreds of millions of dollars a year to the state treasury in Hartford. Now, Massachusetts officials have repeatedly cited these remarkable numbers in making the case for legalizing casino gambling in Massachusetts. But one has to wonder, and especially we wonder in Connecticut, whether Massachusetts officials have looked at the downside of Connecticut's casinos or what's been happening in Connecticut lately. The casinos have created a pervasive gambling culture in southeastern Connecticut. They've skewed our region's economy sharply toward low-paying service jobs, and they've been followed by a sharp spike in the number of Connecticut residents seeking treatment for gambling addiction. Traffic overwhelmed our local roads. I just came up on 16. I can't imagine how you could fit another car on Route 16. Drunk driving arrests in nearby Norwich more than doubled, and the annual number of calls to the Ledyard Police Department quadrupled. The influx of low-skilled, low-wage, often non-English speaking workers hired by the casinos put pressure on local housing and on local social programs. Well, the Norwich school system had to create what is called an ESOL program, English for Speakers of Other Languages, a program for some 400 children who collectively spoke 32 different languages. One of the most remarkable findings from a state study was that, the study was done in 2009, was that there had been a 400% increase in the number of arrests for embezzlement since the casinos had opened, a rate of increase 10 times the national average. One of the embezzlers, incidentally, was my tax collector in Legend. She stole $302,000 from tax receipts in order to play the slots at Foxwoods. And of course, she didn't win. The number of embezzlements in southeastern Connecticut has been so great that the New London Day, our largest newspaper, has described southeastern Connecticut as the embezzlement capital of America. And just in case you didn't read it, just in the last 2 months, 2 high-ranking officials of the Mashantucket Pequot tribe, the former chief and the former treasurer, their names were added to the number of convicted embezzlers. According to the latest research, about 3 million American adults are pathological gamblers. Another 6 to 9 million are problem gamblers with only a little less level of gambling addiction. And another 15 million are at risk of becoming addicted, many of them here in the state of Massachusetts. As far back as 1997, Congress became so concerned about the spread of legalized casino gambling across the country that it set up a commission to study the problem. Based on its findings, the commission recommended that there be a moratorium on the opening of new casinos until the government could get a better handle on their social and economic costs. In addition, the commission recommended banning credit card and ATM use in casinos, prohibiting aggressive casino advertising, and restricting political contributions by the casino industry in order to guard against political corruption. But none of these recommendations were ever implemented, and the number of casinos has continued to multiply. And in the meantime, the casino industry has become a $63 billion industry and one of the most powerful political groups in America. The industry contends that casinos spur economic development, create jobs, and provide revenue to states and municipalities. But opponents, of course, take the opposite view. They begin with the facts that gambling is addictive for millions of people. The casinos prey on pathological and problem gamblers for a major part of their revenue. And that gambling addiction leads to debt, bankruptcy, broken families, and crime. Second, they reject the casino industry's contention that casinos promote economic development. In Connecticut's case, they point out that casinos have done little to create spin-off businesses, but instead have cannibalized existing small businesses and left people with less money to spend on other goods and services. As one Connecticut restaurant owner said, and he happened to be a friend of mine, I never saw anybody more excited about a casino coming to a town than he was. He thought people were going to pour into his restaurant, workers from the casino, visitors from the casino, they were going to stop, they were going to have a drink, they were going to buy dinner. It took him about 24 months to lose his business as the number of casino patrons continued to decline and decline and decline at his restaurant. And he told me after he lost his business, he said, you know, now I understand how the casinos work. People drive to the casinos, they go to the shows at the casinos, they eat at the casino restaurants, they stay at the casino hotels, they fill up at the casino gas stations, and they drive home. We hardly ever see any of them. And third, opponents say there's very, very little evidence that casinos ultimately strengthen a municipality or state's a financial situation. Connecticut, they note, is taking in now over $6 billion in shared slot revenue over the last 20 years. And yet today, Connecticut is in the worst financial shape in its history, with the highest debt and highest unfunded liabilities based on GDP of any state in the United States. And now, just in the last 4 weeks, a major new study of state-sponsored casino gambling has been published that backs up the critics and even goes farther. published by the Council on Casinos, an independent, nonpartisan group of scholars. The study concludes that the state's hunger for casino revenue has created a whole host of problems, from fostering gambling addiction to draining wealth from lower-income people and contributing to economic inequality in America. I want to read you just a few of the study's key findings. 1. Once an occasional and largely upper-class activity, casino gambling has moved from the margins to the mainstream of American life. 2. As casino gambling has spread across the country, the new American casino has become primarily a facility filled with highly addictive slot machines, and it now caters overwhelmingly to middle and low rollers who live within an hour away, return frequently, and play the slots. 3. Modern slots now account for over 75% of a typical casino's revenue and have transformed American gambling. Slot machines are no longer the one-armed bandits that most of us think of when we think of a slot machine. Instead, they become sophisticated computers, engineered to create fast, continuous, and repeat betting, designed to get players to play as long as possible and lose as much money as possible. 4. Pathological and problem gamblers account for 40 to 60% of the slot machine revenue. 5. As Tom indicated, living close to a casino greatly increases the chance of becoming an addicted gambler. 6. Casinos constitute a regressive tax that particularly harms low-wage earners, retirees, minorities, and the newest class of victims, women. And finally, the long-term cost of casinos greatly outweighs their benefits. They drain wealth from communities, spread gambling addiction, weaken nearby businesses, hurt property values, and reduce volunteerism, civic participation, family stability, and other forms of social capital that are at the heart of a successful community like Milford. Now, despite the social costs, casino proponents in Connecticut have argued that Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun, their success in attracting so many people from out of state, so many people from out of state who leave their money at the casinos, makes them a net financial plus for Connecticut. But the monopoly that has led to the casino's success in Connecticut is rapidly ending as the country becomes increasingly saturated with casinos. Maine now has its first 2 casinos. Rhode Island just converted one of its 2 slot parlors into a full-scale casino. New York State, which already allows extensive electronic casino gambling at its racetracks, is in the process of amending its state constitution to allow for the building of 7 new casinos. And of course, you here are in Massachusetts are in the process of selecting sites for 3 mega casinos and a slots parlor. As a result of all of this competition, and I hope you'll listen to these numbers very, very carefully. As a result of the slow economy and growing competition just from Rhode Island and just these racetracks in New York, competition has hardly started in Connecticut, but already Connecticut's slot revenue is down 32% from its peak, falling from $430 million to under $300 million today. Layoffs at both Connecticut casinos have begun. The casinos are increasingly replacing full-time jobs with part-time jobs in order to reduce salaries and eliminate benefits. And Foxwoods, of course, which has already once defaulted on its debt, continues to be deeply in debt due to dramatic overexpansion. The same downward trend is happening all over the United States, especially in the Northeast, and especially in nowhere more than in Atlantic City. As a result of this downturn and the competition, Atlantic City's casino revenue is now down 44% in the last 5 years. Do anybody really think it's going to be any different in Massachusetts? Earlier this year, Atlantic City's newest and greatest and grandest resort casino, beautiful facility, just opened in March of 2012 at a cost of $2.4 billion, just filed for bankruptcy. Just one more casualty for a community that bet its future on casino gambling. As a former New Jerseyite put it, we were promised a glittering gem, but what we got was a glitzy strip surrounded by a slum. Now, Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun said they plan to fight all the competition by upgrading their facilities and re-emphasizing their role as destination resorts in order to continue to attract as many people as possible from out of state. But we in Connecticut recognize that it's very questionable whether many out-of-staters who want to gamble will continue traveling all the way to eastern Connecticut from New York or Pennsylvania or Massachusetts or Maine or wherever it may be if they have a casino in their own backyard. Instead, it seems likely that Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun will have to turn inward and depend more and more on attracting more and more local people to gamble in order to support the gambling complexes they've developed. And that, of course, means more social and economic problems for Connecticut. Now, some of you in the audience may say, well, you know, too bad for Connecticut. But it's difficult to believe that your experience here is going to be any different. Massachusetts new casinos may choose to call themselves destination resorts. But most casinos outside of Las Vegas appear destined to become primarily convenience casinos for local people because of all the competition. As a result, a Milford casino can expect a great majority of its customers to come from close by. I mean, seriously, while gamblers and tourists still will fly to Las Vegas from all over the world in order to gamble, how many are going to fly to Boston in order to drive to Milford to gamble? There's also another very, very important lesson that we're learning in Connecticut that you here in Milford and in Massachusetts may want to consider. And that is, once the casino revenue starts to decline, and I guarantee you it will, unless you are different than almost every other place in the country, your state will try to replace it by encouraging more gambling. Connecticut's response to its declining casino revenue has been to increase the casinos' what they call free play allowance, so the casinos can beef up their promotions and entice more people to come in and play. And the state of Connecticut has also begun to move aggressively to put the state of Connecticut itself in the casino-type gambling business by passing Keno, wanting to introduce video slots, and of course we're facing now increasing pressure to legalize internet gambling in Connecticut. So those are some of the things you can expect. Now, most people in Connecticut, in conclusion, I want to say, had absolutely no way of knowing what lay ahead when the Mashantucket Pequots and the Mohegans won approval for their casinos. You, however, in Milford, can get a good idea of the consequences of bringing in casinos by simply looking at Connecticut. And Massachusetts residents have another enormous advantage over us in Connecticut as well. Massachusetts towns and cities have the opportunity to vote on whether to let a casino into their community or not. That's a precious opportunity, and one we never had in Connecticut. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bob. Our next speaker is a local citizen. David Morganelli is an attorney and a certified public accountant. He's a current member of Milford's Finance Committee. David has lived in Milford his entire life and is very involved in our community, volunteering his time for youth programs and more recently being the driving force behind our new farmers market. David is here to give you an unbiased professional opinion about the casino effect on our property taxes.
as I like to start every meeting, I always say hi to my mother. Hi, Mom. I see my good friend Warren Heller, attorney for Foxwoods, sitting over here. He's taking copious notes, and Warren, I think you could just buy Robert's book and probably get a lot of the data. But that was very good, Robert, and he made some excellent points. I am a member of the Finance Committee. I have to say that I'm not here in any representative capacity for the town on behalf of the Finance Committee. I am here, as Lou Salazzi used to call me, concerned citizen David Morganelli, and I'm also a town meeting member. What I can tell you, and I can give you my own personal opinion on the some of the finances and some of the things that have been reported in the paper. And I can kind of give you my opinion from the standpoint of having sat in the meetings where we've discussed some of these things and some of the promises that are in the host community agreement as negotiated. First, let me just tell you that our finances as they are and as they're reported constantly, continually, and accurately, our finances are in excellent shape. We currently have, in the way we budget on the Finance Committee, we make recommendations to town meeting. We allocate a certain percentage of our annual budget to pay for debt. And when I say debt, I'm referring to the long-term debt schedule. We have a very elaborate spreadsheet, and with the assistance of a town accountant and our financial analyst, we put together all the data for our debt. We currently have a long-term debt, the payments, principal and interest, for this fiscal year will be about $2.8 million. Okay, if we don't add anything else to the debt over the next 10 years and over the next 20 years, all of that is scheduled to be reduced. And it is expected to go down to 1.6 million in about 10 years. Why is that significant? That is significant because I can tell you, as a Finance Committee member, and a staunch supporter of a certain contingent of the Finance Committee, that we will never have a Proposition 2.5 override in this town. We continue to pay all our debts as they come due, and without the casino, we will in fact be able to pay for Milford Pond, pay for the new Woodland School, pave our roads, and any other capital project you can think of. We consider all those things, and we look at all the things that are coming down the pike on our long-term debt schedule. So without it, we absolutely will do fine, and I guarantee you, well, I don't guarantee you, I promise you we will work our hardest to make sure that we never have a Proposition 2.5 override. Now let me just address briefly the 25 million to 30 million to 32 million to 35 million number that keeps being thrown around that we're going to get every year from the casino. First of all, there is nowhere in the community, the host community agreement, where you will see the words, Milford is guaranteed absolutely and without condition to get a payment of $25 million or $30 million every year. It's a promise that is in fact unsecured, that as soon as Robert alluded to, as soon as the finances of a casino go south and they have to restructure, and certain unsecured creditors have to take a back seat, I guarantee you, and I can use the word guarantee in a very certain way there, not in the virtual way, that Milford will in fact take a back seat to some of the other creditors. We are not guaranteed that money. If somebody can please come up here on behalf of the casino and say we are guaranteed to get a certain percentage of money, I throw the gauntlet down on that because it's just simply not guaranteed money. One important point I want to make with respect to property taxes. Okay, everybody's saying, what happens to our property taxes? We need property tax relief. We had somebody at the last town meeting get up and say, the citizens of the town of Milford absolutely need property tax relief. That is true. Property tax relief is a nice thing to have. If the $25 million payment that we are scheduled to get each year were given to us, and again, it's not promised, if we put every single dollar of that on the tax rate, and right now we have a split tax rate, if we were to put every single dollar on that, the average property tax bill, which is roughly $4,300, and that's the number that we get from the town, The average property tax bill would go down about $1,800. That's true, if we put every single dollar of that money on it. I can tell you my opinion. This is not based on anything other than, it is my opinion. It's based on what I know about the town and its finances. We're lucky to see 25% of that get applied to the tax rate. We're lucky. 25% of that would be about $450. Okay? Are you willing to bring the casino into the town for a lousy $50? I'll even round it up for you. Round it up to $50 a month relief on your property tax bill. It's just not worth it. It's not worth sacrificing our way of life, the hit on our water supply, the additional crime, the traffic. I'm so frustrated I can barely get, as Robert said, from one end of town to the other right now. I just can't imagine that even 10 cars a day would be any help to the traffic conditions we have right now. So my own personal opinion is that the property tax relief will not be significant. Yes, why is that? Yes, we will use that money. It will go towards other things. But let me tell you that when people like, and this is not a knock on unions, I think they serve a very important function, but when collective bargaining agreement time comes around, when contracts have to be renewed, when capital projects that we put off today until tomorrow come up for discussion, when a pot of money is identified, I guarantee you that there will be draws on that, okay? And the draws on that will go to other things. It will not be for property tax relief. I can tell you that we've been very diligent in this town in financial planning. You're probably reading the papers about the stabilization fund that we've created. We have a stabilization fund in this town that is second to almost no community. It has a roughly $12 million balance. And why do we have that? Because we plan on never having a casino. We are planning for the future. The Woodland School that will be expected to cost $60 million. If Milford's payment of that is $25 to $30 million, through no Proposition 2.5 override, just drawing from the tax levy and our stabilization fund, we will pay all our debts as they come due. So let me just say that, and I know I've gone way on beyond my scheduled time. The host community agreement, which is a very lengthy agreement, and I could stand up here and talk to you for hours, and I invite you to ask questions about it, has many flawed, in my opinion, provisions within it. And just a couple of big ones that I'll identify. One is that the $2.5 million fund that was set aside for residential property tax mitigation, and I'm sure you've discussed this, and I apologize for not having been to the previous sessions, a very, very important element of that provision is that you cannot draw a penny on it unless you sell your house. Well, there are plenty of people that want to draw down with a home equity loan. And they want the equity to pay for education or for home improvements or for, and the like. If the bank says to you, unfortunately, your property has been significantly devalued, we cannot give you a home equity loan, you cannot draw on that fund. You will have to sell your house, you'll have to leave town, and furthermore, as my father used to say, moreover, the $2.5 million fund is not going to go very far. I mean, if your average property tax property tax valuation hit is $50,000 or $100,000, it doesn't really take a lot of people to get in line before $2.5 million evaporates. That is really, really a low number. So the final point that I will make, and I can make a lot more, but I'm cutting myself a little bit short here, is this is very significant in my opinion, and this is why I'm saving it for last. Having a casino, right now our total budget is an $83 million budget. The casino would be roughly $25 to $30 million of additional taxes. So we're increasing roughly by a third our tax levy, and by doing so, we are getting it from a single taxpayer. And if your mother ever told you don't ever put all of your eggs in one basket, there is the example right there why you should not do that. There is not, to my knowledge, any kind of research or poll or any other investigative work that has been done to guarantee us that all of the other wonderful corporate citizens in this town that have chosen Milford to have corporate headquarters or to have a significant branch of a corporate headquarters will not then leave. There is a corporate culture in this country where we like to keep our citizens satisfied, and we want them to be happy with our jobs. If the quality of life absolutely goes south and it tanks, there are plenty of corporate citizens, and I've spoken to some of the executives that are in this town, and I invite others to do the same. There is no guarantee that other corporate citizens will not pack up and go to another town that's willing to give them a TIF, a property tax relief, an incentive, and a brand new industrial park. And what happens if that happens? What that happens is we've created a greater reliance on a single taxpayer, and now, instead of it being additive, it has a mitigating effect to our overall finances. And the problem with that is we don't plan for it, and I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but the people out in the community that say it will be purely additive, they're thinking 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road. And if anybody is lucky enough to live the next 10 or 15 years, if you want to see what the quality of life and the finances will do, I guarantee you that it's not going to be as good as it is today. So those are my thoughts, and thank you. And I think I went about 10 minutes too long.
Our next speaker is another local boy, Jose Costa. He's a former member of the Milford School Committee. Jose has a BS in mechanical engineering and an MBA. Jose is Vice President of Operations for the Northeast Gas Association. Jose resides in Milford with his wife Pam and 3 sons. He's going to give us some insight tonight about whether we should trust Foxwoods to deliver on its promises.
All right, well, I had a presentation here that goes with it. I'm sorry, let me get this mic here. Sorry to be in front of you guys here, if you don't mind. But we'll see if this comes up shortly. But Biz and I can just start it off and discuss what Steve just mentioned here. Yeah, it's just, here it comes right now. Yeah, okay. So here's the question we've been talking about for the next about 5 minutes. And I guess when you look at can we count on Foxwoods, I think one of the things that comes to mind that as I thought about this is I've heard President of Foxwoods, Scott Gutierrez, say multiple times since April that this is a partnership between Foxwoods and the residents of Milford. And so when you think of partnership, you have to, what are the key components of a partnership? And, you know, one of the first ones you think of is trust. You know, it's almost like partnerships is like, you know, your husband and wife type of thing, you know? You can just trust each other. The one thing that I'm sad about is that, you know, we've only had basically since April to date Foxwoods to get to know them a little bit here. And I wish we had more time to really understand who they were. But so this is really about a partnership, but since we haven't had time to really get to know them, so how do we determine if this is a good partnership? We have to take a look at experiences. What has Foxwoods been involved with in the past that can give us that feedback? And so let's take a look at some of Foxwoods partnerships. And there's other examples. I'm just going to give you a few. Let's take Philadelphia. Here they are. They were given a license in 2006. And what happened? In 2010, the Gaming Commission in Pennsylvania basically revoked the license, saying that it had taken too long. They really didn't do what they promised to do. And on top of that, as you see the article here, I'm actually going to show you mostly articles from newspaper ads from the local communities. Here, in this particular case here, you see in Philadelphia, you have a situation where they actually tried to litigate it, try to overturn it, but as you can see, they didn't win. The other thing about this particular, in Philadelphia, the other part is, look, they didn't pay their taxes on the property. I mean, is that a good partnership? Does that show signs of partnership and working with the community? I don't think so. Then there's another one, Kansas. Same exact thing. You know, they were working to build a casino in Kansas, and that didn't work out either. Now let's turn to the finances, and Steele talked a little bit about this, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but just a couple of the key points is you got It was $2.3 billion they were in debt. All right, $2.3 billion. And those were comments at the bottom that you can read that, again, this is Mr. Butera, the president of Foxwoods, said about his investors. And I'll just move on to the next one. This is what their investors lost, $550 million. But what does that mean? That means if it was a $2.3 billion, they still have about $1.7 billion still in debt. It means it just got pushed off a little bit. Yes, they got lower interest rates. They still got $1.7 billion approximately in debt. Now, I found this to be interesting, where this is, again, back to partnership. This is what they think. The tribe made a statement. The tribe was interested in filing for bankruptcy, which they couldn't do because of the regulations in the United States, but they were thinking about it. And they believed it would have more leverage against junior creditors. Isn't partnership something where it's even? Everybody wins in the partnership? It's not leverage over one over the other? Now, that's a little bit at the past. I don't know how many of you knew this. Steele talked earlier about New York, what's happening in New York. Did anybody know that there's a deal right now? Foxwoods is looking to build a casino in New York? Well, let's see, 1.7 million in debt, 1 billion for Milford. This is like the 700 million. Are we going to run into financial problems if they win all of these? And it says at the bottom, again, this is Mr. Butera, that the Castle project, even if it is selected, they're going to continue, even if Massachusetts is selected, they're still going to go ahead with the Castle project. So it's not one or the other, it's both. Now, I'm not going to go into the host agreement. I had some comments here in the host agreement, but I think, actually, no, this is actually the host community. The host community partnership, looking at the host community that they're in right now. How is their partnership? We really haven't heard too much about that. We haven't, the flyers that you get at home from Foxwoods, do you see anything about the host community? What I see is about messages about communities that are about 15, 20 miles away, representatives from there. But what about the host community? I think this slide says it all. This is a court case. They're in a court case with their own community. Is that going to be Milford down the road? And then the host agreement, this is the part I was going to say, I think David covered very well. I mean, I find it vague. For those of you who have read it, best efforts, acceptable levels, maybe modified time to time, negotiable. Those are terms so vague that when you do go to court cases, you don't have anything to stand on. And then, finally, I just leave this with you for you to think about. So the question is, would Foxwoods make a good business partner for Milford? And so ask yourselves, will Foxwoods really follow through here in Milford? Or will it be the same thing as what you've heard of what they've done in other developments they've been involved with? Can Milford count on Foxwoods to keep its financial promises? Again, with the debt they have and everything they have going on, they promise you. And I think other speakers, David said it earlier as well, I'm personally worried about that. And then the last question is, if Foxwoods delays construction or fails to make payments to Milford, how much time and money will it cost us in court proceedings and appeals to enforce the contract? Remember, Foxwoods is over billions of dollars corporation. Milford's annual revenue is 80 million. So I don't think we can get the same type of lawyers to support us in court cases. And that's it.
Thank you, Jose. And let's have a round of applause for all the 4 speakers. We're now going to move to the question and answer period here. So the way this is going to work is, if you're a Milford resident, simply raise your hand. We have 2 gentlemen that will bring a microphone to you, ask your question. If you want to direct it to a particular panel member, you can do that. And try to keep your comments brief to under 2 minutes. Okay. Steve?
Just, we have 2 other people up here as panelists to answer your questions. And the first is Barbara Morganelli. Barbara was born and raised in Milford, a lifelong resident. She's been a real estate broker in town for 28 years. And one of her specialties was relocating families to Milford for the high-tech companies located here. So if anyone knows the Milford market, it's Barbara, and she's here for questions. And David Quandry from the water company could not be here this evening. David, you here? Come on up here. We got a seat for you, David. I'm sorry, I didn't see you back there. Yeah, David will answer your questions about water issues.
I'm just going to say, don't be shy. Raise your hand. I saw one that went up about halfway over here, so we're trying to get things moving along here.
David, why don't you come on up here to the stage, and everybody, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have questions for you.
We have a seat and a name tag for you over here, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, anybody that has questions, this is the time. Let's you raise your hands, and we'll have a microphone come over to you.
That's a pretty quick question. Jose kind of elaborated on it, but just the complexity of the host agreement. It's upwards around 150 pages, a lot of details in there. I'm very concerned. How can we enforce everything that's in the host agreement? There was a lot of promises in there. I'm afraid there's some sort of escape clause or lots of escape clauses in there that allow the casino to not fulfill their promises.
Yeah, who is that directed to?
In general.
David, would you like to take that?
Sean? There really is no guarantee. I mean, Milford is in the position of an unsecured creditor, and like Jose said, when they use terms like best efforts, I negotiate contracts all week long. And anytime I don't want to be held to anything, I'll throw a term in there like I'll use best efforts because I know it's basically meaningless. And it's a lawyer's dodge. I mean, that's what we're paid to do. How are you going to enforce best efforts? It's a very subjective term. So the other parts of the community agreement, I think that the lower dollar numbers, there are things that we're probably more likely than not to get. But when you're talking about those bigger dollar numbers, there's no 100% guarantee. It's a big document. There's a lot of loopholes, and I could talk a long time about it.
If I could add just one of the loopholes, can everybody hear me? One of the loopholes is, the promise that Milford is going to get all kinds of jobs. Well, when you actually read the host agreement, what it says was preference will be given to residents that live within 50 miles of Milford. Okay, that includes Boston, Providence, Lowell, and it actually almost goes down as far as Foxwoods in Connecticut.
Other questions?
I'm backing up a little bit, but I have a question for Mr. Larkin.
By the way, can you please tell us your name?
My name is Mary. And I listened to and believe your statistics that show a significant increase in crime comes with the casino. And people have, Lynn has said in the past that he visited Foxwood and was impressed with the security. So Foxwood has indicated that they will be paying for additional police officers in Milford. So from what you know and in your studies, will that be enough? How many officers is enough? And are there any stats on transports from casinos to our hospital? What is the burden on our hospital? Thank you.
Well, the only thing I can say is that the gambling industry hires people to do studies, but they control those studies that are done. The facts are that the Ledyard, and Bob covered this, crime rate went up 300%. So they have a serious problem with crime. So that the data gets to be controlled by the person who pays for the research. Unfortunately for us, the gambling industry really puts a lot of money into research. They hire excellent psychologists, I'm very impressed with them, political consultants. And so my best answer to you is, it isn't so much that they lie, but they exaggerate. And they've done interviews in Ledyard that I've noticed of individual people saying, I haven't seen any crime increase. But if you do, the first thing you have to do in this business is find an independent person to do a study of this. Do an independent cost-benefit analysis to get your hands on this crime issue, the public health issue, how it's going to affect the hospital, how it's going to affect the rehabilitation system in your community. And if you get an independent person to look at that, they'll give you an honest assessment. I'm biased. I've looked at the research, however, and in my view, and as the Attorney General of Maryland indicated, crime will absolutely increase.
Yeah. I just want to address the question on the effect on the Milford Hospital. Foxwoods has said that as a result of the casino, there will only be one patient per day or one visit per day that would come to Milford Hospital. This is with 7 million annual visitors, one. And as you probably saw 4 nights ago in the front page of the Milford Daily News, Frank Saber, our president, said, oh no, that's greatly underestimated. There's going to be at least 13 per day. That's a 130% increase compared to what Foxwoods said. So somebody's misinforming the public, but I'm going to stand with Frank Saber, our beloved president. Next question.
My name is Deb Flanagan, and my question is for Mr. Steele. Foxwoods proponents and one of our selectmen have been dismissing your presentation and credibility, saying that you are only here to sell your book. What is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I have to smile. Let me say, first of all, right off the bat, that I do hope as many people as possible will read the book. I did an enormous amount of research on the book, and I hope it will serve as a cautionary tale for any town in America that's faced with having to make a decision on a casino. But secondly, as I say, I really have to smile that Foxwoods is trying to discourage people from reading the book. When Foxwoods has now hired, my understanding is, 2 PR firms and is spending hundreds of millions of dollars promoting the casino. Surely my book can't be that powerful.
Next question.
Okay. Hi, I'm Diane Canino, and I've been doing canvassing actually against the casino. One of the things that has impressed me most about the people that I've talked with who were already or are on the fence is they literally came here tonight to find out the other side of the story. And I know it's difficult for you who have already taken a stand to do this. But surely there must be some worthy benefits that have not been mentioned tonight of having Foxwoods or having the casino come.
Steve?
I'd like to respond to that. Yes, there have been many words and many flyers and many mailings and many ads in our papers and many spots on the radio about the benefits of Foxwoods. And yes, there's a lot of money there offering and throwing around as a benefit. Also, they're touting the jobs. So that's the other side of the story, and they have millions of dollars to promote this and put this out there, and you guys are getting the mailings every week in the mail. So that's that side of the story. What we tried to do tonight was because we're the only voice speaking on the opposite side, the downside of bringing a casino into town. We're the only voice, and so our goal is to provide voters of Milford with as much of a balance of information as possible. So Foxwoods is doing a really great job with their PR campaign. So we're giving the other side of the story here, so you'll have a balanced view to make your decision on your voting.
a great question because there are benefits, and we all have to acknowledge that. But what's missing here is an independent comparison of benefits with costs. Now, there's a great book out, Gambling in America, and he did an independent study as an economist from Illinois, I think University of Illinois. He found after extensive study that there are benefits. They equal about $1. The costs equal about $3. So the costs outweigh the benefits 3 to 1, based on his study. And we would welcome any other independent study, but you can't take the gambling industry's word for it, because they want to get in here. They are focusing on the benefits.
Thanks, Tom.
I just want to make a follow-up comment on that. And Tom is basically saying the same thing that I was going to say in some different words, but the answer in my mind is that yes, it's a lot of money, but to every equation, in this case, this transaction, there is a quid pro quo. There is a price to be paid, and the price and the cost is going to outweigh the benefit. And by the way, we'll get by without the benefit. It'll be nice, but we don't need it to balance the budget. We'll be fine with it.
I'd just like to add that I've been watching these battles around New England, and there certainly is no lack of the casinos telling their side of the story. If there was ever a David and Goliath battle, it is over casinos in these towns after town after town. In Springfield, for example, the estimate is that the two casinos battling for it to be chosen in Springfield spent over $10 million. The opponent spent $5,000. So I think that the casinos have more than succeeded in telling their story. What we need is to give a little time to David.
Hi, my name is Sarah Howe. I don't want to belabor the point of, what are we going to do? How is the casino going to, how are they going to meet their financial obligations to us? I think we've identified that, there's going to be a lot of competition. There's going to be a drain, as everyone said, on lower income, families or people who are challenged by gambling addiction. My question becomes, when that time comes, right, 3-5 years down the road, what does Milford look like? I think David spoke a little bit to this, but I think we all need to really hear, once the casinos, shiny new star is worn off, which it probably will quickly with 2 other casinos and slot parlors and all that stuff coming into the state, as well as the new casinos in Maine, etc. What does this town look like? That's what I'm concerned about, having 2 young children that I want to send to school here.
Would you like to address that, Steve or Bob?
Well,
Tom?
Yeah. As I mentioned in my brief remarks, it will affect the young people, but gambling is becoming an increasingly serious problem for young people because of their involvement with computers and computer games. It's an easy transition to online gambling. So, and it's also about values that we teach in our schools. I mean, gambling is instant gratification. There's a connection between all of the addictions. They interact and they reinforce each other. But the effect on young people is quite remarkable. As I mentioned in my remarks, gambling problems are surfacing in colleges and high schools now at a level that is frightening counselors. So I would hope those of you who are concerned with the schools, what are we teaching our young people about values? This is gambling is fun, smoking cigarettes is satisfying, drinking is satisfying. It's not a problem for most of us who gamble, but when you bring it in, then more and more young people are going to have more and more problems. It's going to affect the quality of the character of the community, and it's certainly going to affect the schools. I worked for 35 years as a school psychologist. I can guarantee that.
And let me just add, you want to know what Milford will look like. Well, if you have 7-8 million new visitors coming in, there's going to be a lot more traffic. There's no question, both on 495 and on the local roads. That's common sense. You're going to have more crime, and it's not just in absolute terms, but the crime rate of casino towns is 84% higher than non-casino towns. That was a study, a 5-year study done by the U.S. News and World Report. So you'll have higher crime rates, more traffic, and lower property values. You know, the National Association of Realtors did a study. They, you know, what they did it to Springfield. They're a national group. They said property values would fall 5%. At least in Springfield. They probably will fall more here because we're particularly around where the casino is. You know, there's a lot of studies that reinforce that. So I think our property values will fall, crime will be higher, traffic will be higher, and we will have some additional water issues given the finite nature of our supply and the increasing demand, not just from the casino, but from the normal growth.
I just make a point on, from an urban planning perspective, looking at downtown. My own personal opinion is that the downtown right here is on the verge of, over the next 10 or 15 years, doing something very good and very significant and going through a lot of rejuvenation. I think if you bring this in, it will absolutely douse that flame, that flicker of hope that we have for the downtown. And right now, there are several restaurants that I'm sure we all patronize around here. You can kiss them goodbye because they're not going to survive. It just won't happen. So I think to survive in downtown, to continue doing the good things, the opportunities and taking advantage of those in this downtown, we want to do that and go in that direction, obviously. So people out there, tell them to vote, kill this so that we can preserve what we have.
Purchase Street. I have to drive down Villa Street every night from work. I saw some of my pictures from my car that I took on the way driving. I wasn't in danger. I was using my cell phone. I wasn't in danger because the traffic was stopped. That is my point. We made the comments about Foxwoods as being a company that's rather large and is not necessarily meeting its financial obligations. What is about the rest of the casino organizers? How are they doing in terms of meeting their financial obligations? And if a casino is a good idea, shouldn't we be going with someone that can meet their financial obligations? I already know what the answer is.
Who'd like to address that, Steve?
I'll address that. First of all, we don't know because we haven't gone into the other proponents for the other casino projects, so we really don't know. We've addressed what's going on here locally. But if you look at the big picture, as Bob so aptly described it, the typical business plan, that's some hell of a business plan. The typical cycle is that the first few years, everything looks great and you're able to deliver. It's a new facility, people go and checking it out. And then, as the competition sets in, the revenues drop down. So I would guess the other two proponents that are proposing casinos in eastern Massachusetts would fall in the same kind of cycle. But that's just a guess because we haven't looked at their financials and we haven't looked at their businesses like Jose has tapped into it.
Okay. Another question?
Good evening, I'm Mike Tim, I'm a 30-year Milford resident, and I would just like to make the people here aware of a letter written by State Rep Carolyn Dyken yesterday to Stephen Crosby, Chairman of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. And this really builds on what Jose had to say as far as the suitability of Foxwoods as a partner. The proposed developer
has a pattern of ambivalence towards criminal activity and corruption. The chairman of the Foxwoods Management Council was federally convicted in July 2013 of embezzlement. The treasurer of Foxwoods Management Council resigned in October 2013 after pleading guilty to federal charge of embezzling $700,000. The current Foxwoods Chief of Staff, who has direct authority over the police force in all aspects of Foxwoods Connecticut operations, has been convicted of a criminal offense 3 times and at least once a violent criminal offense.
You're getting close to that 2-minute mark, Mike.
Okay, the history of poor management, fiscal management, inability to meet financial obligations. Currently, Standard & Poor's has Foxwoods rated at a CCC rating, meaning that it is currently vulnerable to non-payment and is dependent upon favorable business, financial, and economic conditions. It has a history of challenging financial commitments to partner communities.
We got to cut you off there, Mike, because we want to be fair to other questions. But thank you.
Carolyn Dyke, a state rep in a neighboring district.
Thank you. Next question. Thank you. We'll go to the microphone.
Folks would like to look at that paper. It's available at one of the tables back there, where it says thank you. You can pick that right up and read it yourself.
Representatives said to the people of East Milford, you're going to have to take a bullet for the rest of the town if the casino comes. How is this project going to help Milford be a better community if its residents and neighbors are set against each other?
Yeah, I can take that. I was up at the high school at the Foxwood event when one unbelievable statement coming from one of the Foxwoods representatives that the whole section of East Milford is going to have to take a bullet for everybody else. Does that sound like somebody that's trying to promote a cohesive community partnership? Not to me. That's all I'll say on that matter. Yeah. Jose?
And that's a great question because as being a town meeting member, I can remember not that many years ago where in this town we had a lot of duplexes being built, where we actually had, in a certain section of town, where we actually had homes being torn down, duplexes built. And I remember at a town meeting that some of the people from that area came up and pleaded to stop that. And we as town meeting members recognized that even though it was in that area, we're one community. We live together here. And we voted to stop, to make changes to that. And I think it's the same thing here. We can't just forget the people that live right in it, that wouldn't live near the casino, that would live there. It's not going to happen.
Thank you, Jose. Next question.
Hi. My name is Chris Ward, and I have a question for the other Morganelli, Barbara Morganelli. My question is about property values. And I've done a lot of reading on the subject, and I've read the reports that the consultants did, and frankly, I've found it all quite confusing. None of the communities that were studied in those reports look anything like Milford. One is the home of the O'Hare Airport in Chicago, the second largest airport in the country. The other is the home of Baltimore Washington International Airport. And those communities are industrial. They're the kinds of communities that you find near a very large airport. Again, we don't have an airport within, 35 miles of us, and we look like that kind of a place. It's not an industrial community. So none of the places they found are anything like Milford, not comparable at all. And so it's no surprise to me that their conclusion was that there's no impact on property values. But it means nothing to me. So if there's no real relevant data that we can rely on property values, then we're left to our own kind of intellect and gut instincts and anecdotal information of people with experience in buying and selling homes. And so I think your experience as a realtor, I would think would be very informative for us and very instructive and help us understand the property values impact better than any of the information that's actually being published about it.
Okay. Can you hear me? Close? Oh, no, I can. Okay. What you need to know first is, of course, the people that will be most affected will be the homes closest. But that doesn't mean that the rest of Milford is not going to feel the results of the casino being in town. When I ask a prospective buyer, would you like to, especially I would say prospective buyers that have children or planning to have children, would you look at a home in a casino town or a non-casino town? The answer is always, give me the non-casino town. I've had local people tell me if a casino comes to Milford, they're going to put their home on the market because they don't want to live here anymore. What I see is, if we have an abundance of homes for sale, and we don't have an abundance of buyers for those homes, what's going to happen to the selling prices? What is the real value of those homes going to be? Now, last week there was a report by the Massachusetts Association of Realtors regarding the values of communities in Massachusetts. 26 communities in Massachusetts have now surpassed our peak prices of 2005. In the Metro West area, 4 towns have come very close to reaching their peaks. They listed 7 other towns that are trailing, and the trails start with 12% below their peak, all the way down to 25%. Would you guess what town is at the 25%? It's Milford. And what's happening is in 2005, our peak median price, selling price, was $365,000. Today, our peak median price is $238,000. Now you tell me why. I can tell you that I did call Connecticut, and I called the realty office this spring, because that was my first concern, that I'm not somebody that believes what everybody else tells me, so I had to find out for myself. The first words out of this realtor's mouth was, it's the worst thing that ever happened to Norwich, don't let it happen to your town. And there were just, as Robert Steele told you, I don't have to repeat them. What he's telling you is the truth. They have been foreclosing on houses in Norwich. Last spring, they were foreclosing on 20 to 25 houses a month. I called recently, and they're down to about 15 houses a month. But it's still not that great. They're telling me that half of their main street is closed, their industrial park is almost vacant, their YMCA closed down, their hotels and their restaurants are considerably less. So if we have all that happen to us, what's going to happen to our tax rate? If our values on houses go down and they have to raise the tax rate, do you think you're going to save on your taxes? I don't see how it's going to happen.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Another question over here.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I'm finishing my master's to become a licensed mental health counselor, and I live in the town of Milford. You guys have some. Sorry, can you hear me now? I'm finishing my master's to become a licensed mental health counselor and currently work in the mental health field. And you have some great programs here in Milford. You have the Wayside Family Works program. We talked about the potential consequences, but we haven't talked about what Foxwoods is going to do when they come here and the inevitable problem of domestic violence, substance abuse, gambling addiction, and all those mental health problems that come with it, the suicide rate going up. What are they going to do to help us? Because has limited resources as it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Tom?
No, I would just agree that it will have an impact on the mental health of so many people in the community. I work in the prison system. I'm very concerned about the recidivism rate. Turns out that 2 out of 3 people now being released from incarceration return. And so there's mental health problems and criminal behavioral problems is a way of thinking. It's about instant gratification, the advertising and the need to have more and more people try to get instant gratification is going to affect the human service system in Milford, without question. Thanks for being in that business. I look forward to being a colleague with you.
Another question? Thank you, Tom. Question on this side?
Joe McMahon from Littlefield Road, and I have a question. I actually have three questions I'd like to address to Jose with his experience on the school committee. But yeah, as an average Bill 40.
Let me just, we're limiting it one question per person.
Okay.
That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing.
As an average Bill 40, I don't have a complete understanding of this very comprehensive hosting agreement. And I'm really, and as a proud Milford High graduate, I think the schools really got left out. One of the things that I feel is very important to note is that Bob Tremblay, who we've entrusted the guidance of our school department, did his own report on the impact the casino would have to our school system. I'd like to know what kind of impact did that have on the money that's been set aside for the system, because it seems like they got left out. I'd like to know if all of his concerns, being our town's education expert, have been properly addressed.
Thank you. Jose?
I don't like that question. Can you ask me the next one? I talked to Bob, goes back about a month ago, Mr. Tremblay about a month ago, and one of the things he shared with me is on the impacts of it. He was involved in the process, as he told me, but I think I could tell from, he didn't come out and tell me it wasn't enough to be able to have an impact on the host agreement. Now, one of the things that's key to the host agreement in the education side is that one of the things he told me, and I think you heard Mrs. Steele say it tonight as well, is the fact that the lessons learned in Connecticut is that the number of languages spoken in the schools went from what Mr. Tremblay told me was from 5 to close to 30 in his case of what the superintendents told him. Now, being on the school committee, I can tell you that especially with Massachusetts laws, the regulation today, if a child does not speak the language, does not speak English, you have to basically speak to them at least for a one-year term, one-year period in the native language. So we have to hire teachers, and the most important part of it is a space issue. And that is one that I'm concerned with. We're building a new school. What would be the space situation here? Would we need more schools eventually? And then when you look at the host agreement, who would pay for that? It's really not clear there on that. And I see school committee members here as well. They probably would do a better job than I would on this question.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you. Question on this side?
Thank you. First I'd like to...
Can you tell us your name?
My name is Mike Kaplan, you know that, John, but to the rest of you, Mike Kaplan from the pro casino side. And as some people have already pointed out, a balanced forum to obtain true facts probably would have been a little bit more appropriate to the citizens to have both sides represented, to get facts from the people from Foxwoods, from the engineers, but you didn't invite anybody to do that. And I don't think that's appropriate. However, I will say this, there, $25 million is guaranteed, Mr. Morganelli, and as a fellow attorney, it's in the contract. It's a contract. So, Mr. Costa, my question specifically is to you, sir. You get up and you say it's not a partnership with Foxwoods. Yet you fail to tell everybody, intentionally misleading them, that there is no host agreement with the local community. They were not allowed to obtain the $34 million that we could get. With a guaranteed $25 million that is in the host contract. So why is it that you didn't tell the people here legitimately exactly what it is? The Pequots, the Mashantucket town, did not have an agreement like the host agreement that has been created here. That is fantastic. I give great credit to the people of the selectmen, all three of them, for creating that type of agreement. Why did you intentionally mislead people?
What's your question, sir?
Mike, why did you intentionally mislead people?
I got his question. I got your question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do have your question. And by the way, let me just answer something you said in the beginning, though. When you said this is not fair because you don't have the same side. I felt the same way as a resident of Milford when I was at the high school listening to forums. To your question, what I showed up on, hang on, you had your opportunity.
It's not facts when you present just one side.
Let me answer your question, please. You basically said that nothing about the host agreement. All I said is partnerships. You don't have a casino suing the town it's in. That's all I said. So did I mislead you?
Okay, David, I just want to address your point about the guarantee. It might use the word guarantee, but correct me if I'm wrong, you show me the page and the line in there where it says that the guarantee is secured. So a guarantee without security, in my mind, is an empty guarantee.
It says
There's no lien on assets. We have no lien on their assets. It's unsecured.
Yeah, let me just say this. No one was denied admission to this hall tonight. And you're here tonight as an example. This is open to pro and anti-casino people. And if anybody from Foxwoods wanted to come, they could come. Next question.
Thank you, Jeff Merrill, Fountain Street, for David Condry. I'm hearing ads on the radio saying that Boston people have talked to the water company, said there's no problem with the water. You know, we have plenty of water. But yet, I know we've had people from our group come and visit you, and there is a problem. So there have been restrictions for as many years as I know, year after year after year, and you have a new plant. So I know we have a capacity problem, and if there are new sources, why haven't we done it in past years?
First, I want to apologize. I didn't realize I was part of the group here. I thought this empty spot was for Mr. Buckley, so I apologize for that. The position of the water company, the casino I came on board in 2009. I remember back early in 2009 that the casino did approach my office about supplying water. And the position of the water company hasn't changed since 2009 as far as our ability to supply water to the casino. If they needed water today, tomorrow, last week, next week, we would have a difficult time to be able to supply them with the water and still maintain our current Management Act permitting volumes and the capacities that we currently have. We would have a difficult time to be able to supply them and our current residents and developments that we have on the books, especially during our peak demands during the summers, etc. So again, the water company has not changed that position, and the studies done by Time Bond, etc. They show those numbers. Those numbers are correct numbers that they show currently what we're able to produce and what we used to be able to produce when the wells and everything went online. Our Management Act permit, yes, there is room available for the casino to fit in within our volumes as granted by the permit. So there is room for it to be there. But my current capacities and my restrictions on how much I can pull out of the Charles River and Echo Lake will make it very, very difficult. So again, we haven't changed that position. Within that host agreement, and we made this clear as well, that in order for us to be able to support the casino and not impact any of our current projects or anything, any of the volumes that we are currently supplying to both commercial and residential customers now, without having the original capacities of some of the other wells brought back, we can't supply that with enough water comfortably. And again, that's why in that host agreement, in order for them to start construction, in order for them to move forward, they have to create 135% of their average day demand. Their average day demand, I believe, was 230,000 gallons a day. It comes out to, I think, about 320,000 gallons, I believe it would be if you add 135%. So in order for them to do so, they need to recover that amount of water from one of my wells. I know they've been focusing on Godfrey Brook well field, which has about 0.49 or 490,000 gallons worth of water that we can bring back. I have 290,000 available in Godfrey Brook. I have about 400,000 available if we redevelop Diller Street wells, etc. So there is room for growth if we can get those wells developed. The key word is if, because we do not know. You don't know until you start to redevelop these sources whether or not you bring them back to their original capacities. There are new technologies available now which are kind of helping us out, and we're looking at doing so out in Fox Island. So even before the casino came to town, we were looking at these types of improvements to help alleviate the new regulations and the restrictions that we're starting to see with the Management Act permit. Again, but the company's position has always been that the residents' health, welfare, fire protection will always come first. And we have not changed that position. Nothing's changed. Again, there is a big if out there that if they can redevelop a well, and again, they've been focusing on Godfrey Brook at this point, and bring back some of that original capacity, that it would be able to fit within our permitting and within the current demands that we have within the community, including developments that we currently have on the books. There's a couple out there for Dominic Alfonso, etc.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Steve,
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that as a civil engineer, in particular a geotechnical engineer, which is a study of and creation of structures and things having to do with the underground, including water. And first of all, let me say that David, we're very fortunate to have David as a manager and operating officer of the Milford Water Company. He's doing a great job. And I'm not saying this to disagree with David, I just want to make you aware of something. First of all, there's large demands coming up from new users. Let me just give you a list here. Beaver Commons, Walden Woods, Steele Pond Estates, the Milford Hospital expansion, the new assisted living facility, Stone Ridge Office Park. These are all in the news, new developments happening here in town. So, when we look at the possibility of supplying Foxwoods with the water demands that they have, and we look at all these other projects, which will almost certainly be built before Foxwoods, if we voted in, would come online, there's a huge demand here, David, that is coming from sources other than Foxwoods before Foxwoods even comes online. The second thing is, I agree with David, the idea of the plan on going ahead and producing enough water for Foxwoods' demand, as they have set it out, is to provide additional pumping capacity. Now, if all of you that live here in Milford know that Milford is primarily bedrock, but we have a few aquifers. One is in Godfrey Brook, and the other is below the Charles River. That's it. We have a very finite aquifer system in Milford. The rest of the town is all rock, and we're not going to get any water capacity out of that. So if you have if this is our aquifer, this cup, and you have one straw in it now, and we're pulling out of it, and we have water restrictions happening, right now we have all these additional demands. If you use a solution that puts a second straw in that aquifer, and it starts pulling on that, I seriously doubt that we're not going to have a long-range problem here of not having enough capacity in our aquifer without pulling it down and creating a serious problem here. So that, I'm sure, David is going to be looking at in the big picture in the long range. But I have serious concerns about whether or not we have the actual reserves here in Milford to supply this.
Other questions? We got another question over here.
Well, just to follow up, so you're saying that even if they develop more water, bring in more water, I probably still won't be able to water my plants between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. in the foreseeable future, ever.
One thing you have to realize, whether the casino's here or not, the restrictions will be in place. That's part of my Water Management Act permit. It always has been part of your Water Management Act permit. And so, again, it's not going away. We could have rain from May 1st all the way up to September 30th. I will still have a restriction in the middle of the summer. Echo Lake can be overflowing. I still will have the restriction in the middle of the summer. It is part of my Management Act permit. I am required to have restrictions because we are in the Charles River Basin. That will not change whether the casino's here or not.
Thank you, David. Other questions? We're on this side.
Hi, my name is Ann Walton. I live at 1 Park Road in Milford. And I just want to start out with a comment, and that is anytime I hear the talk about the benefits of, and I hear the word mitigation in the same conversation, my antennae go up. The word mitigation, if you look it up in the dictionary, will tell you that it is payment for bad things that happen. So I don't care how many mitigating phrases or clauses there are in the host agreement. The host agreement is primarily about fixing problems. That's my comment. To the people in the town of Milford who have not had the privilege of going to Uncasville or Ledyard, Connecticut, as I had, because I have family that live in Norwich and the surrounding towns, I would invite you to take a trip down there, not on a bus that goes from Milford to the casino, but in your car, and get off the highway on Route 163 and follow it up until you get to Route 63. And then that's Norwich Road, and just meander down those roads a little bit, and that will give you a better idea of what Milford is going to look like. And I can say that with some authority because my family lived in Connecticut before the casinos were there. It was open farmland, it was beautiful, the storefronts, very small towns, New England towns, and they're very changed. So I invite everybody to pack a picnic and take a ride down to Connecticut and see for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. John, we got some questions up here on this side, in the front.
Yeah, well, get some more. We'll be live. No, we can wait.
My question is for David Connery also. What happens if Foxwoods Casino uses more water than what they're stating that they will use at this point in time? Will they be given additional water, or will the residents be limited further? And who makes that decision?
The intention of the company would be to sign our own type of agreement with them as far as how much water they would be allotted, if you will. We will be using the town's host agreement as our bare minimum as far as what they need to have for like 135%. But we were also looking at our own type of agreement. We have one similar with the electric power company, National Power there. We give them, they have a max day that we're allowed to give them, and they can take up to 300,000 gallons a day. So there is an agreement with them that restricts them on how much water they use. We had something similar with Hopedale, but it was a lot higher number, which they hardly ever used that max number. But our goal or our intention would be to make sure that we had some sort of set number in there. And with contingencies that if extra water is needed, that we would have to start some kind of process to look for the additional water elsewhere within the system itself. The other part of it is that there would be contingencies that if any new changes in our permitting is required, that they will be responsible for all costs associated with that, etc. So we have our own ideas on how we're going to handle restricting how much water that they actually get. We'll make them commit to a number, and that's what we're going to try to hold them to. The other part of it, too, is that we're going to make sure during design and construction that they have the ability to get supplied with tanker water or emergency water, because they will be, the commercial large users will be the first ones that we look to for conservation efforts should we get into a drought situation where we need to really start to look at the consumptions before the consumer or before the residential and their health and welfare and fire protection.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Do we get another question? Over here.
My name is Mike Visconti. I'm a resident of Milford, live on Muriel Lane. And for purposes of clarification, I would direct my question to Attorney Morganelli. It seems to me that a significant number of residents have been swayed towards pro-casino because they have been led to clearly understand that their property taxes will be reduced by between 30 to 40%. Now, well, Attorney Morganelli did a fine job of explaining why this will not happen. This is the type of point and issue that I believe is indicative of other numerous misinformation that is being disseminated by the casino people to intentionally mislead the residents of the town. So, just for purposes of clarification, if Attorney Morganelli could please, and I don't want to put words in your mouth by any means, but if you could please reiterate for those who may not have been here or for those who may not have heard, that in fact there may be no reduction in their property taxes if the casino comes to Milford. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. First of all, I would say that I don't think the casino people are misleading anybody with the way they advertise, because the beauty of it is it's all in the small print. When you look at their chart, it says at the very top, the one that was in the paper, if every single dollar of $25 million that we're giving you is applied to the rate, then your property taxes, an average property tax bill will go down accordingly. We did our own financial analysis internally, and I'm sure they got theirs from somewhere else. We were very, very close. The issue is, in my mind, is that I don't think, it's highly unlikely, and again, it's my opinion, it's highly unlikely to get 100% of $25 million every year applied to the tax rate. It's further complicated by another issue. There have been, right now we have a split tax rate. So the commercial tax rate is 1.48 times greater than the residential rate. So you end up having different tax rates. There's been kind of rumblings out there in the community by some people that there will be a move afoot at some point in the future to move to a single tax rate. That would be very, very bad. There is no guarantee that we would never move to a single tax rate, meaning everybody pays the same single tax rate. In fact, if you look at the chart, if we applied $25 million to everybody's bill for a single tax rate, your property tax bill would only go down like, I think it was like $600 or $700. If we only applied 25% of the $25 million and we were to move to a single tax rate, your taxes would actually go up. So, it's, In my mind, it's one of those things where, again, I don't think that Foxwoods is misleading anybody with their math. I mean, it's advertising the way they're doing it, but there are no guarantees, and, 10 years down the road, there's really no telling where that money is going to go. Everybody will be fighting for it, and it's not going to go to the citizens of the town necessarily. People are going to have a very distorted view about the availability of funds. It's going to become very difficult to negotiate collective bargaining agreements, to fight over capital projects, and so on. We can get by without it, and that's been my point.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Next question.
I'd just like to comment on that just very briefly. We're going to get, should this whole thing go through and the money comes through, at least at the beginning, we're going to get something applied to the tax rate. But whether or not that number is $500 off your rate, or $1,000, or even $1,500 a year off your bill, how many years is it going to take to make up for even a modest 5% loss in property value because this is a casino town? 15 years, 20 years, that before you even break even? What a great deal.
Thank you. Other questions on this side?
Lois Davison. My question is really to do with the construction. I've looked at the maps, but I don't quite understand. Are they going to take the center highway of 495 all the way from exit 20 to 21 and make other lanes? Is that the intention? And then they're going to have another entrance directly to the casino?
Steve, you want to take that?
And then also, what is happening to Route 16? Is there going to be any improvement on that road?
First of all, on your question about the highway, what the construction, the road improvements proposed are all about is building an exit and entrance from 495 to Foxwoods. That's where the $100 million road construction is going to happen. And so the proposal is that the existing lanes on 495 now will remain as intact, or somewhere close to that. They would construct 4 more lanes in the center median. The center median would be for through traffic, okay? And the existing roadways on either side of the median would become what they call collector roads, where you get off the highway, slow down, and then you can turn into Foxwoods or come back onto 495. So it's all about creating an exit.
Okay, so are they going to build barriers as well? Because if you drive into Hartford on Route 91, it's nothing but traffic, 6 lanes of it. And they've had to build barriers on either side because of the noise.
Well, there's no question. The fact is that all that construction is about getting on and off 495 at the casino. It has nothing to do with the volume on 495. Now, if we're talking about 7 million visitors a year, without boring you with all the traffic numbers, common sense tells you that 495 is going to be awfully busy from the Mass Pike all the way down at least to Franklin, if not Renton. And I suggest the visual would be like what it's like on 495 when there's a concert at Patriots Stadium, if you've ever been through that kind of thing.
Nobody's addressing that. I mean, it's not part of the proposal to create barriers to protect the population.
Will there be barriers? Well, we've asked that question a number of times, and the comment back is the federal highway probably won't require it, but we'll look into it.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Another question over here.
Hi, my name is Bill Sanborn. I have a question to Attorney Morganelli and his higher authority, Barbara Morganelli. This is a follow-on to the information that Barbara shared regarding real estate valuations. And if I do the math, it sounds like our average valuations have already declined, at least in Milford, by close to $100,000. So if you do the math for this mitigation fund of $2.5 million, it's enough to cover 25 homes. That's if you take into account that it's a $100,000 loss. Even if you bring it to a lower value, let's say $25,000, you're still talking 100 homes that could possibly benefit from that fund. My question to Attorney Morganelli has to do, I haven't read the agreement, I'm not really familiar with it. You talked about how you have to sell your home, and I'm curious how, if it's even been thought through, as to how someone might actually apply for some funds out of that account.
I don't believe it says in the agreement how the application process will go. It just says you will apply to the fund. I mean, like any law where you have regulations that are behind it, they will pass regulations and the regulations will tell you how to apply. But my point was that you're right, you can't draw on it until you incur until you have a realized loss. The only way you have a realized loss is if you sell your home. You can't go to the bank and say, I'd like an equity loan. That was my point. And if your value is dropped and you can't tap into the equity, too bad, you can't apply to the fund. So you're right, it's very, 2.5 million, 100 people, 25 people at 100,000 apiece. Poof, there's your 2.5 million. In my mind, it should have been more like, 50 million.
Thank you, David. Next question on this side.
Over here?
Yeah.
Public service announcement, it's 0030.
My name is Scott Brickley, 433 East Main Street. My main concern is, not main concern, one of many. I'm sure a lot of people here have many concerns. But we hear about how these casinos, when they come, they seem like they always use bankruptcy as the easy way out. And I just don't, is there any for this point in time, is there any way we can go ahead and change our agreements so it's more like Boston's? So we have promises in terms of performance. And,
David can handle that.
The Gaming Commission has put in rules in place. This is part of a very strict process. We have a signed host community agreement. How that is written right now it's done and it's closed and it's going to go to the voters. There is no protection that if they restructure or if they go into a bankruptcy, that will have some kind of priority over any other creditor. And that was my point before that. I can guarantee that you're going to be nominated for President of the United States. I can guarantee that every time you go into a Dunkin' Donuts, they'll give you free coffee just because you asked for it. I can guarantee you're going to find a winning lottery ticket on the sidewalk. It's an empty guarantee without security.
Questions? We got one more question over here. And I think we're going to wrap it up after that.
We're in the third inning.
Third inning, okay. And there's that question, then a guy here in the front, and then we'll call it a night.
Stuart Downs, Berkeley Road in Milford. I don't believe that Milford will see very much revenue from the casino because the host agreement is not a contractual document written in contractual legal language. It is an open loop kind of marketing document in my opinion. But the big thing that worries me is a gentleman from Wales Street at the beginning of the summer in one of the meetings gave the selectmen copies of the Supreme Court ruling against the state of Michigan. What happened in Michigan was that the Indian tribe quietly bought land, virgin land in the northern part of the state, and then started to construct a casino. The state said, hey, what are you doing? We didn't give you a license for a casino. And the Indians said, oh, we bought this land, it's our land, we're a sovereign nation, this is our sovereign land, we can build a casino and operate it without your license. It's my belief that the Supreme Court of the United States agreed with them. They operate a casino without paying the state of Michigan a penny. So my fear is that the first time Foxwoods, with its financial debt and finesse, the first time they feel the winter winds, the chill of losses, bad business, the 5 companies that make up Foxwoods today could become 7 companies. They could reorganise under Chapter 11 or 17. There could be a 51% Indian make-up, and they could say, sorry Milford, this land, this business is protected as Indian sovereign, blah, blah, blah. The host agreement is meaningless. We don't have to give you a penny in revenue. See you later. And my question is to basically Mr. Morganelli, whether that legal scenario has any, am I a crackpot, am I a drunken sailor, or is there a possibility you could see that scenario given the laws of Massachusetts and the federal?
First of all, good question, because a lot of people have asked it. You're not a crackpot. I do love your accent, though. That's a great accent. I don't think that scenario is feasible because I think a tribe has to have a claim to the land to call it a tribal land. And I don't believe there's any tribal connection to that parcel off the highway. If for some reason they were to find some connection, like years ago there was, tribal meetings here hundreds of years ago, that's a possibility. But this is, and I think one of the previous speakers alluded to the fact that this is not a tribal-driven casino. This is, driven under Massachusetts law. So I don't see that happening.
Can I just add to that? There's a law that was written in 1988 called the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, and you've put your finger on it. Many politicians voted for this because they said the Indians are coming, the Indians are coming. But what they didn't realize is if they hadn't voted for a casino, the Indians couldn't open any casinos on any land that is defined as a reservation by the Department of the Interior. But now that we have casinos authorized in Massachusetts, if a tribe goes through the hoops that they have to go through to have a reservation identified by the Department of the Interior, the Supreme Court will defend their right to open a casino in this state because we have authorized casinos. Big mistake. And there was a misunderstanding, I think, by a lot of people who voted for this in the legislature. They thought they had to do it because of the Indians. And what they've done is they've opened the door for the possibility, far down the road, the Indians have to get their act together in terms of reservations. But if they do that, they are independent from the state and would be able to do that. As I read the Regulatory Act for Indians that was passed in 1988.
Thank you, Tom.
Can I just make one more point? Real quick. There was an article in the Boston Globe a while ago, maybe a year ago, about the casinos hiring this one individual who had become expert in dredging up evidence of a tribal connection to a land. He would find the remotest connection to a piece of property, and then they would say, see, hundreds of years ago we were here, so, certify our tribe. So that's the kind of thing that they resort to dredge up the evidence.
We want to thank everybody for coming here. You've been a great audience, a great set of questions. Let's have a round of applause for the panelists. Thank you all so much. And don't forget to vote on November 19th. The polls are open from 7 to 8 o'clock at night. Thank you so much.